These are photographs I took of stitch outs of experiments that I did using the contour tool in Digitizer Pro version 3. They look really stunning on the fabric. In fact, I am genuinely quite pleased with them, but they do have a few little faults. If I show you this photograph, it's a close-up of the previous one, and you can see stitching has got very dense, so much so it's pulling the threads underneath to the surface. A lot of people have problems understanding what density is. I want you to look at the center of this, because this is all a loose density, and just look at how compacted those stitches are. There's an enormous amount going on here. Because don't forget, this is the top colour, and you've got just as much underneath. Now this one, it's nowhere near as bad, because I'd actually spaced these out. And I should say that these were pure experiments, nothing else, just playing with the contour tool. This one worked far better. Same reason, I didn't take the centers into the middle, and here it is up close, and you can see we don't have this dreadful thickening that I had here. The density is a lot sparser, but even so it's still pulling up the underthread depending on the direction it's travelling in. I was actually stitching far too fast for a single stitch design. So let's go and investigate what density is. And I'm going to open Digitizer Pro, close that one, and very quickly digitize a shape. I say very quick, I can't do anything very quick. I'm the world's slowest digitizer. Okay, I'll knock that into digitizer mode. Now we're going to look at what the density of this design is. We're going to do it by zooming in. Quite large. These are the travel lines of the underlay. These are the edges of my shape. These are the rows of stitching. The hoop has travelled sideways, back, and so on. And when you purchase a design, you're buying a stitch file. It gives you no information at all on what density was used by the digitizer. I'm going to go to View and pick up the measuring tape. Now to measure density, you measure 2 forward travelling lines, and you don't do it on the edge unless it's satin stitch. I think we can afford to go up even higher than that. We'll take it up to 1,000. It's better. We click on a line. That one's going forward. The one above it is coming back. So we miss him and we click onto the next one. And that tells me 0.5. But I know that's not the default of this program. So then I miss the next one because that's travelling back, and then I come to the next one and get it exactly on that line, and it tells me that's 0.8 of a millimetre. Now, because I've clicked the first one, missed the second, looked at the third, missed the fourth, looked at the next one, which is the fifth, I know that the density is 0.4, and I'll show that to you now. I go into Object Details, and in Digitizer Pro, stitch density is called stitch spacing, 0.4 millimeters. Now, I do not think in imperial, neither does my computer, and neither does Digitizer Pro. It's based on metric measurements. I work in metric the whole time. Now, I'm going to alter this setting, and I want you to watch this. Do you see how it's widening? We'll take it up to the full millimeter. Right, 1 millimeter density. OK. And there it is. Now if I pick up the measuring tape again, I click on a forward going row, I miss the return row, I click on the next, 1 millimeter. The computer, or the program rather, doesn't count the return row. Even though it exists, the density is actually taken between 2 forward rows. So that's what's known as density. Now, another thing that you'll hear a lot about is push-pull compensation. And I want you to look here. This is the travel on edge, because I went up to 1 millimeter density. That is my trace line, that black line. If I knock it into simulated stitch mode, you can see the black line more clearly. Now, if I go into Object Details, Stretchiness, and I tell it I want a stretchiness allowance of, we'll say 5/10 of a millimeter, that's half a millimeter, so that's 0.5. Tell it OK. I'm going to alter where I'm sitting in my screen. I told it to travel on edge, didn't I? And that's what it's doing. OK. Now you can see it's come over the edge by half a millimeter. That's the stretchiness allowance. And what it's doing, it's allowing for the amount of pull that the stitch direction is setting up. And because it's stitching at an angle, the greatest amount of stretchiness allowance, and I'm trying to get this so as you can see it, and we'll come out of simulator stitch mode. Now I'm going to alter the angle that it's stitching at. And to do that, I go into Object Reshape, which is this icon on the bottom toolbar, fourth one in, and that's my angle there. As I move my angle, see how the stretchiness allowance moved. It's now decided the greatest area of stretch or pull. Here you go. Now it's saying, whoops, biggest area of pull is at the top and the bottom, here and here. There's no real pull on the edges, so we'll extend the stitches at the top and the bottom. And that's exactly what it does. Now if I change that again, now it's saying, all the pull is at either end of this square, because the angle is only 1%. Let's put it on 0. And there you can see it. It's overhanging by half a millimeter, that side and that side, because it knows as the hoop is moving from side to side, the needle penetrations are pulling the fabric in, and so it's doing its best to stop it being pulled in and giving it an appearance of a square wearing a corset. Okay, so that's density, and that's a little bit about push-pull. Only a little bit. If I move that to 45 degrees, this is one of the worst fill angles there is. And the reason it's one of the worst is because not only is it driving the stitching on the bias, the fabric, if it's properly hooped, will also be on the bias, and so you'll get dreadful distortion problems traveling in this area, which means this side will try and collapse in, and this side will actually pull out a little. So you end up with a weird shape. It's a little bit brief, a bit sketchy, but push-pull is stretchiness allowance, and you need to use it. And density is the distance between two forward rows of stitching. Not the back row, but the two forward rows.